There is a quiet terror in the world, subtle but unrelenting. It is not the roar of armies, the crash of stock markets, or the blare of sirens in the night. No, this fear is far more intimate, far more personal. It is the fear provoked by a human who has mastered themselves so completely, so ruthlessly, that they become an unmovable force in the lives of everyone around them. And Machiavelli, in his cold, unflinching way, understood this better than anyone. He did not preach charm. He did not celebrate likability. He spoke of discipline, a discipline so exacting, so unyielding, that it terrifies, that it commands respect without a word, without a gesture, without a plea. Imagine waking each morning, not to the blare of your alarm or the chaotic demands of the day, but to a ritual you have crafted with such precision that the world itself feels like it bends to it. Every movement, every choice, every thought is deliberate. There is no hesitation, no surrender to distraction, no excuse for failure. This is not discipline born from guilt, nor from shame. It is a force cultivated with patience and iron will. And as you begin to live this way, something remarkable happens. People notice, subtly at first, almost imperceptibly. Colleagues, friends, even strangers sense it. There is an aura that cannot be faked, a confidence that does not need to speak. And as Machiavelli would warn, when others sense your certainty and self-mastery, they fear it. Not because it threatens them directly, but because it reveals their own indecision, their own chaos. Discipline is not about schedules, though it begins there. It is not about habit, though habits form its scaffolding. True discipline is a state of being. It is the quiet, unshakable authority over oneself, over the mind that endlessly debates, over the impulses that beg for indulgence. Machiavelli would have you see that humans are weak by default, pliable to whims, carried away by desire, vanity, and fear. To rise above them, to ascend into a space where your will is unchallenged, you must first conquer your own internal anarchy. You must become the master of your time, your focus, your energy, your very thoughts. And when this mastery is visible, when your life is a seamless flow of purpose and precision, it unnerves those who have never looked in the mirror and confronted the chaos within themselves. There is a story of a man who walked into a room and changed the air around him without a single word. He did not raise his voice. He did not demand attention. He simply existed in such alignment with his goals, his discipline, and his integrity that the world had no choice but to notice. Others felt small, unmoored, inadequate, not because he wished them harm, but because he revealed the stark contrast between mastery and surrender. Machiavelli would call this the art of power without overt aggression, the power that comes simply from being unflinching, from being relentless in the pursuit of self-command. This is the discipline that scares people, not because it is cruel, but because it is absolute, and absolutes are rare. Discipline demands sacrifice, yes, but it demands something deeper than effort. It demands clarity of purpose. You cannot walk the path of mastery with a wandering heart or a fragmented mind. Each day, each hour, each choice must be weighed against the life you intend to live. The world will try to distract you. It always does. With trivialities, temptations, the soft seduction of comfort. But the disciplined mind sees beyond this. It is a mind that plans not just for the day, but for the decade, for the life, for the legacy. Machiavelli would remind you that humans often fail not from a lack of talent, but from a lack of internal alignment, from a surrender to impulse. To discipline yourself is to cut through the noise of desire, the fog of fear, and the inertia of indecision. It is to wield your own existence like a finely honed blade. And there is beauty in this terror. For those who fear your discipline, who see your unwavering focus, and feel the tremor it sends through their own wavering wills, there is also admiration, though it may be grudging, though it may hide behind a mind cynicism. People are drawn to power in its purest form, to mastery that cannot be swayed by flattery, by envy, by weakness. They are drawn to the presence of someone who has tamed themselves, who moves like a storm contained, precise and inevitable. And as you walk through the world in this way, a strange paradox emerges. You are alone, yet the world bends subtly around you. Feared, yet quietly followed. Untouchable, yet profoundly impactful. Discipline is not a cloak to be donned for effect. It is forged in the invisible hours, in the silent choices no one sees, in the relentless repetition of effort when it offers no reward, when no one is watching, when the world seems indifferent. Machiavelli understood that appearances are powerful, but only discipline gives them weight. A man may appear strong, a woman may seem confident, but without the underpinning of self-mastery, these are illusions easily shattered. Discipline is the architecture behind the facade, the unseen scaffolding that gives every action gravity, every word conviction, every presence undeniable force. And yet, the journey is lonely. For every person intimidated, there will be those who misunderstand, who misjudge, who envy. They will whisper, they will question, they will test, but the disciplined do not flinch. They do not argue. They do not plead for understanding. Their power is in their constancy, in the fact that their actions, their routines, their focus are not contingent upon approval or applause. This is what makes them frightening to those who live in compromise. They cannot be swayed. They cannot be distracted. They cannot be diminished. To become so disciplined, it scares them, is to accept a kind of responsibility that most will never understand. It is to acknowledge that your life is not a performance for others, but a battlefield you must conquer every day. It is to realize that mastery of self is the ultimate strategy, the foundation from which all influence flows. And Machiavelli, ever the realist, would tell you, this is not moralizing, this is survival. In a world where weakness invites exploitation, where indecision is punished, and chaos devours the unprepared, discipline is your armor, your sword, and your shield. And so, each morning, as you rise before the sun, as the world still sleeps, remember, the quiet moments of commitment, the painstaking choices repeated without fail, the resistance to temptation and distraction, these are your true victories. The world will notice, even if only in the subtle tightening of a colleague's jaw, the hesitation of a rival, the awe of a friend. You will move through life like a force contained, inevitable and precise, and one day, perhaps, they will say your name in hushed tones, not out of friendship, not out of envy, but out of the deep, abiding recognition that you have achieved what few dare to attempt. You have disciplined yourself so completely that the world cannot ignore you, and in that discipline, you have become untouchable, unstoppable, and profoundly feared. But there is a subtle danger in this kind of discipline, one that few recognize until it stares them in the mirror late at night. The very mastery that commands respect can isolate. The very rigor that terrifies others can leave you wandering through your own life with an echoing emptiness, where conversation feels shallow and admiration feels transactional. Machiavelli would not have called this weakness. He saw human relationships as instruments, as chess pieces on a board. Yet even he understood that the truly disciplined walk, a fine line between fear and awe, between isolation and influence. To maintain your relentless focus, You must embrace solitude, not as punishment, but as a companion. It is in solitude that the mind sharpens, that priorities clarify, that strategy emerges with crystalline clarity. The disciplined are not lonely because they are unkind. They are lonely because they cannot compromise the rhythm of their inner world for the convenience of others. And there is a rhythm to discipline, a cadence that becomes almost musical once internalized. Each morning begins with intention, not a checklist of errands, but a choreography of action designed to cultivate strength, wisdom, and inevitability. You move through your day like a conductor guiding an orchestra, precise, deliberate, and deeply aware of every note, every pause, every crescendo. Tasks are no longer burdens. They are instruments of self-mastery. Decisions are no longer overwhelming. They are opportunities to refine control. And the world, with its chaos and noise, becomes a background hum, an orchestra you have learned to conduct rather than be conducted by. Consider how fear operates in this context. Fear, in the lives of others, is born from uncertainty. People fear what they cannot predict, what they cannot influence. And when you are disciplined to the point that your actions are deliberate, your reactions measured, and your intentions transparent only to yourself, you become unpredictable, not in a careless, chaotic way, but in a way that exposes others' own inconsistencies. They cannot sway you because you are already committed, already aligned with a higher standard. And this is the essence of Machiavelli's wisdom. Power is not simply taken with violence or charm. It is embodied in the one who cannot be manipulated, distracted, or undermined. It is a silent authority that renders those around you nervous, uneasy, and, paradoxically, respectful. But fear without understanding can breed resentment. The disciplined must learn the art of subtlety, of influence without oppression. To scare is not to humiliate, it is to illuminate the contrast between mastery and mediocrity, between chaos and command. Your very presence should serve as a mirror, reflecting not your triumph, but the possibilities others ignore in themselves. And this requires a strange humility. You must be aware, always, that fear is not power unless it is tempered by the gravitas of purpose. Discipline without direction is vanity. Discipline with clarity becomes inevitability. There is a story that illustrates this beautifully. A young general, rising quietly through the ranks, noticed that his peers often wasted their energy in theatrics, in posturing and gossip, in chasing the approval of those too weak to grant it meaningfully. He did not join them. He did not complain about them. He did not even argue. Instead, he mastered his own schedule, refined his strategies, and cultivated his mind. When the decisive moment arrived, his preparation was invisible, yet absolute. Orders were executed with precision, plans unfolded flawlessly, and those who had mocked him were left scrambling to react. They were not defeated by his cunning alone. They were unnerved by the perfection of his self-command. That is the kind of fear Machiavelli admired, a fear born from inevitability, from the quiet terror that someone's discipline cannot be shaken. And this, ultimately, is why discipline is both a sword and a shield. It protects you from the chaos of the world and grants you the ability to shape that chaos into opportunity. It is what allows a person to act when others hesitate, to decide when others doubt, and to endure when others crumble. The disciplined mind does not panic in the storm because it has already anticipated the wind, the rain, and the shifting tides. It moves with clarity and certainty that seems almost unnatural, almost inhuman. And for those who are not disciplined, witnessing this is unsettling. It challenges their assumptions, exposes their weaknesses, and forces a confrontation with the truths they have long avoided. Yet discipline is not a destination. It is an evolving practice, a lifelong choreography of self-control and intent. Every day presents a new test, temptation to slack, distraction to indulge, comfort to surrender. The disciplined do not succumb because they have internalized the stakes, that the world rewards not those who are merely talented, but those whose mastery over themselves is unwavering. Machiavelli understood this. He understood that human weakness is the foundation upon which every power structure is built. To rise above, to become so disciplined it scares them, is to remove yourself from the ordinary currents of human frailty, and to navigate life with your own compass, unfaltering and uncompromising. So, as you sit in the quiet of your morning, consider the invisible work that must be done. The hours when no one is watching, when no recognition is offered, when no reward is promised. These are the moments where true discipline is forged. In the repetition of small victories, in the conscious refusal to indulge weakness, in the commitment to precision, the world begins to bend subtly to your will. And when others finally notice, when the whisper spreads, when the glance lingers just a little longer, it is not because you demanded it. It is because you earned it through relentless, unshakable self-mastery. This is the journey Machiavelli envisioned for those who would seek power not through manipulation, not through charm, not through the fleeting sway of fortune, but through the most enduring force there is, the disciplined, fearless control of oneself. And as you walk this path, remember that the fear you inspire is a reflection, not of cruelty, but of clarity. You are not frightening because you seek to harm. You are frightening because you have become inevitable. You have aligned mind, body, and will to a purpose so precise, so unyielding, that it leaves no room for doubt, for yourself, or for anyone who dares to stand in your orbit. And in that alignment, in that relentless pursuit of mastery, you find something far greater than fear. You find freedom. Freedom from chaos, from indecision, from the endless tug of whims and distractions. Freedom to act with intent, to live with purpose, to leave an impact that cannot be ignored. This is Machiavelli's ultimate lesson. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is power. Discipline is inevitability. Discipline, when fully embodied, becomes the quiet force that shapes destiny itself. And now, as you stand on the precipice of your own potential, it becomes clear that discipline is not a series of actions. It is a way of existing. It is a rhythm that infuses every heartbeat, every breath, every glance. The world may rush past in chaos, in distraction, in the endless clamor of indecision, but you move through it with the precision of a river cutting through stone. Nothing can divert you, because you have learned the one truth that Machiavelli held above all. Power does not come to those who wait for it. It comes to those who forge themselves into the instrument through which power flows. Consider the look in their eyes when they first witness it. The colleagues who underestimated you, the rivals who mocked you, the friends who envied you, they sense it instantly. It is not arrogance they fear, though it may appear so. It is not cruelty, though it may be whispered about. It is the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you cannot be swayed, that you cannot be undermined, that your actions are inevitable, like the turning of a great wheel that grinds forward no matter how loudly anyone protests. And in that inevitability, there is both awe and terror. They feel the pull of your discipline, the magnetic force of your mastery, and they recognize deep down that they themselves will never reach this plane unless they first conquer the chaos within. But discipline is not just a weapon against the world. It is a mirror. It reflects back every weakness you have hidden, every fear you have ignored, every compromise you have made to comfort or convenience. And the truly disciplined welcome this reflection. They study it, confront it, and transform it. They understand that each moment of temptation resisted, each lapse avoided, each distraction dismissed, is a brick laid in the architecture of their invincibility. Machiavelli's genius was in understanding that this internal war, the war against your own mind, your own impulses, your own weakness, is the crucible through which all real power is forged. And when you emerge from this crucible, tempered and precise, the world can feel your presence before you even speak. The power of such discipline lies not in spectacle, not in noise, not in the theatrics of influence. It lies in the invisible force it exerts, the subtle pull of inevitability that shapes outcomes without a word. People begin to follow not because you demand it, but because they sense the certainty in your motion, the alignment in your being, the unwavering commitment that radiates from you like light from the sun. And the most fascinating thing of all is this: you can act with kindness, with patience, with generosity, and still inspire fear. Not the fear born of malice, but the fear born of realization. The fear that here stands someone who will not falter, who will not yield, who cannot be swayed. That fear, Machiavelli would say, is respect, power, inevitability, all in one. And so, the final truth emerges. To become so disciplined it scares them is not merely a strategy. It is a destiny. It is the choice to live consciously, deliberately, ruthlessly, in alignment with your highest purpose. It is the acceptance that the price of mastery is solitude, patience, and relentless attention to the small, invisible details that others ignore. It is the recognition that every hour spent perfecting yourself, every moment of restraint, every sacrifice of convenience, compounds into a presence that can be denied, a force that cannot be mugged, and a life that cannot be ignored. In the end, discipline transforms you into more than a person. You become a statement, a force of nature, an unshakable presence whose gravity shapes the world around you. They may fear you at first glance, but this fear is not meant to punish. It is meant to illuminate. It is the mirror of what is possible when a human being chooses to wield their will with precision, to live with purpose, and to forge themselves into a vessel of inevitability. And in this transformation, something extraordinary happens. Fear turns into admiration, resistance becomes recognition, and isolation evolves into influence. You discover, quietly and profoundly, that to discipline yourself completely is to carve a space in history for your own mastery, and to become, in every sense that matters, untouchable. So rise in the quiet hours before the world stirs. Move with intent in the moments no one sees. Resist the temptations that seek to scatter your mind, dilute your purpose, or surrender your will. And remember this: every step toward discipline is a step toward inevitability. Every act of mastery, a declaration to the world that you are no longer subject to its chaos. You have become a presence that cannot be ignored, a force that cannot be swayed, and a life that will, inevitably, leave its mark. And when they look at you, when they realize what you have become, they will understand. Not because you told them, not because you demanded it, but because your discipline, so complete and unflinching, speaks louder than any words ever could. Discipline, in its purest form, is terrifying. It is beautiful. It is power. And above all, it is the ultimate freedom. The freedom to act, to endure, to shape, and to leave behind a legacy of mastery so absolute that the world can only watch in awe. This is Machiavelli's philosophy, distilled to its essence. The world belongs not to the lucky, not to the charming, not to the cunning, but to the disciplined. To those who rise each day, forge themselves anew, and move through life with the inevitability of a storm contained, unstoppable, and undeniable. To be so disciplined that you scare them is in the end to be more than human. To be an idea made flesh, a testament to what the human spirit can achieve when it conquers itself first. And as the sun rises and the world stirs into its familiar chaos, you walk through it not as a participant, but as a presence inevitable, precise, disciplined, and profoundly, quietly feared. The question is no longer whether they notice,